Greetings, greetings, greetings once again. Gentleman Jim the Tailor.
Victoria Baylor, Dressmaker. Hey guys, it's nice to see you again for another one of our episodes, the Tailor and the Dressmaker Show. And this week, if you were able to catch up with us on last week, we talked a little bit about Mr. Jim releasing his comprehensive tailoring pants fitting course, which we're all really excited about it. And as promised, of course you're interested, I will include a link for pre-order that will be coming out within like the next 10 days or so. So we're pretty stoked about that. Last week he also demonstrated some of his, unique tailoring tips on how to approach different fit issues when it comes to pants. Today he's going to highlight a few more fit issues, and you want to give them an idea of what that is, Mr. Jim?
Well, yes. Most of the time, people have a challenge with, they buy a pattern, they make it up, and then they have to go back and adjust it. What we try to do is to eliminate those things.
This is the tailor's way. This is their approach.
We try to eliminate those before you even cut it out. Now, there are areas that a lot of people aren't sure, well, how do I get the right fit? The best way to do that is to take a pre-existing pair of pants that you have. Everybody has a pair of pants that fit somewhere.
Yeah,
okay,
to some degree.
I have to say that because you might like the leg, the way it fits. You might like the body part of it, the way it fits. That's the best way to get your fit when you're cutting it, see? And you take those measurements and you apply them now to the pattern, and I'll show you the pattern adjustments as you go along, see? So what happens is, if you take the measurements and you measure and say, well, I like the way this leg fits down here, and you apply that to your pattern piece before you cut it out, so that when you sew it up, there's no guessing at it. It'll come out the way the other one was. Now, where do we get those measurements from?
Okay, so we are going to take a quick little switch over so you can see Mr. Jim do this up close. But as you were saying, which I think we were talking about earlier, he does most of his work actually at the flat pattern stage. So it's all the adjustments, and it's pretty much 95% accurate
every time
at that stage. So that's making every adjustment. If you think about it, as sewers, a lot of times we'll do some of them and we'll do them a little bit subpar
in stages,
and then do them in stages, and then you sew it up, and then you're trying to work and do other stuff. Well, it is possible to get most of that done ahead of time. So in this video, of course, in his course, he's going to outline the full process. But for this quick little short video, he's just going to highlight how do you create pants legs, width and length the way that you want, and how to use a pair of pants that you have to achieve that. So we're going to do a little close-up.
As I was saying about where we measure at. Now, this is a pair of pants, let's say, that I like the way the leg fits. So all I'm really going to do is I'm going to measure to see what the finish, remember the finish. Now, on the bottom, I want to measure and see what the bottom of the pants finishes. That's this area right here. So when I measure, I see what that is. Then I want to do the knee area. The knee area is usually somewhere between 10, 11, 12 inches. That's this area right here. Once again, also, I measure that across and I see what the distance is. Now, we talk a lot about crotches being too big. That's this area in here. That's really determined on how large the person's thigh is. But once again, you can get a measurement off of that by just merely measuring the width of the leg. If this is a pair of pants that you like the way it fits, measure it. I always say, this is a game of numbers. And if you measure it, you'll get your distance. Then what you do is, you equally distribute off of your pattern size what the difference is, and you reduce that and then you cut it. So once you cut it and you sew it, you will get a more accurate fit rather than to cut it out and say, oh, the leg is too wide. Now you got to taper it again. That's a double operation. So you could do the same thing when we talked about the crotch area. You can do the same thing with the area here by just measuring it. And this is what I always say. If you measure the area there, and then you come to the area of your pants before you cut them out, if you measure it and you get the same or you don't get the same and you make the adjustment, but you like the way this one fits, that's what counts. Why make it up to have to try it on to say, oh, I need a little more here, I need a little less there? Why do that? That's what they make the tape measure for, rulers, everything. If you measure the area, you'll get what you want. The same thing amounts to the seat area, and that's this area back here. That determines the length of the seat. Same thing. If you measure the distance, always remember you have to back up your seam allowance back on it. But if you measure the distance and you see what it is, and then you go to the back of your pants and you measure the distance, you will get what you want. Be careful of going ahead too soon and just cutting the garment out. Because see, once you cut it, it's cut. That's why I always like to lay it out, measure it before I cut it. Then I can make any adjustment wherever it needs to be on the garment. And I'm going to show that, and you will see that in my adjustment of pattern course. But this is what you need to do long before that you cut it out and make it up. Because most people have a tendency of cutting it out, making it up, trying it on, then say, oh, I need a little more here, I need a little less there, the leg is a little too wide, or the leg is too narrow. But if you get a pair of pants that if it fits you in the top part, across here, measure the pieces. The front is still the front. If you measure across the front, you're going to see what it is. If you measure it across the back, you're going to see what it is. If you're going to measure this distance here, you're going to see what it is. You want to measure that. You want to do all of that before you physically cut the garment out. The size of the leg, whatever it is, you want to do that too. These, my friends, are tips that will help you before you just cut a garment out, assemble it, and now you want to start adjusting. Make your adjustments up front while it's still in the raw stages. Because what will happen is once you do that, you will get the results of the size of the leg, the size of the pants that you want. I hope those tips have been helpful for you. I got a lot more, but those are what I do in the beginning. That's why my finished product comes out 95% accurate every time. People always say, well, what's the 5%? The 5%, once you finish the garment, if you finish the pants, is usually the waistline, because that can change literally overnight. The size of the leg won't change. The length of the pants won't change. Most of the time, the hips might vary ever so slight. But where you always end up coming back is, how big am I in the waist at that particular time? Those are just the tips that we use and that I use and have been using. This is what I teach all of my students. Once again, if you take an accurate waist measurement and an accurate seat measurements, and you don't have a pair of pants that fit you correctly, if you take those two measurements there, and you take a standard pants pattern, and then you apply the numbers to the pattern, that will give you kind of a basis to start with. Now, once again, if you don't have any of these, start with some kind of Muslim draft first before you cut into your better material. See, this way, that gives you enough area to play with. Now, one suggestion I always use, and if you're going to use a Muslim draft, and you put and you take your pattern and you lay it out, and you put it on the Muslim draft, and then you mark out where the pants were with your seam allowance in the hip area, mainly the hip area, and going down a little into the thigh. Allow a little more. Now, don't necessarily put your regular seam allowance. You still want to put your seam allowance where you've allowed it. But leave you a little extra on your Muslim draft, so in the event you have to make a change, you've got some material to work with. But you still want to stitch it on the line where you've marked it. This will start you with where you can get the area that you need. As far as the bottom of the leg, if you're not sure of the sizing, put some numbers down. Now let me give you a couple of measurements that seem to always work. If you deal with a lady's pants, the bottom, a good width of a bottom is somewhere around 17, sometimes 16. If you deal with a man's pants, the width of the bottom, a good width, that's just about standard across the board, is 19. So with those measurements, then the knee area, which is this area in here, for a lady, if the bottom is 17, then you want the knee somewhere around 19. That gives you a nice streamlined leg. Now, once again, if you're going to do that, and you make a 19 knee, you need to measure the calf of your leg. Because you got to remember, you got to get your leg in it. See? But those are kind of some standard sizes that industry uses most of the time. Ladies' bottom, somewhere around 17. Men's bottom, somewhere around 19. Now, for men, sometimes it's bigger. Men have big feet. So you want to make sure that happens. If you make that up in your Muslim draft, when you start there, that's a good standard. So I hope those have been helpful to you, and I'll see you again. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed those few tips. Once again, we're here. I give you what I was taught years ago, which has made my whole life in this industry a lot easier, because I try to eliminate everything that could go wrong in the beginning. That's what I do, that's what I show, that's what I teach. So, as we always say, Gentleman Jim here, the tailor.
And Victoria Baylor, dressmaker. And let me just plug one thing. What we think is, again, I mentioned the last course or last show, the unique thing about Mr. Jim's teaching methods is from a tailor's point of view. So what we're trying to do is bring you something unique and new. Most of you are familiar with how most, home sewers or just dressmakers or general sewers do things, but not many people get to take a sneak peek into the kind of the studio of a master tailor. So this is what we're bringing to you. So hopefully you'll find that super beneficial. It will completely, I promise you, revolutionize how you do things. Pre-orders, they're available now. Check your screen. You can go to the link, get yourself set up. We don't want you to miss out. We're going to go ahead and say bye. As always, our usual fashion, God's giving you amazing gifts. You are an amazing person. There's no one like you. Definitely use those gifts to benefit someone else and just bless the world. So we love you. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye now.